What are the best brands in ham radio today? The best brands of transceivers. It's important to distinguish which brands we're going to be talking about today. The best brands for transceivers in the HF world and sometimes the VHF, UHF world as well. What are the best brands in ham radio today? Coming out of 2020 into 2021, we're going to talk about it right now.
Shut up and sit down.
Good afternoon, folks. My name's Jason. I'm KC5HWB. I've been a ham radio operator in Texas since 1994 and been on YouTube since 2015, talking about new things in amateur radio, new folks in amateur radio, how to get your license, new radio unboxings, and just kind of all good stuff. One of the most searched topics on YouTube is best ham radio brands. Some of the best questions that I get are, hey, what's a better brand? What's a good brand to start with? What's a good this right there? I've never heard of, if you're a brand new person coming into amateur radio and you don't know what to look for, then you don't know what to look for. If I was going to go out and buy a guitar amp right now for an electric guitar, I wouldn't know what brands are good and not. I might know some of the older ones that have been around a long, long time, but I wouldn't know what's new and what people are talking about without having to look it up first. So we're going to talk today about what are the best ham radio brands today. I'm going to give you 7 of my top brands that are what I considered the best brands in amateur radio for HF radios, and then also for VHF, UHF, and some of the later models. So let's get started right now. Okay, the first one I will tell you about is my personal favorite, and that, of course, is Flex Radio, flexradio.com. These guys not only are in the USA, made in the USA, but they are made actually right here in Texas, just about 3.5 hours south of me. I did some videos with them after I went down to their facility a year or two ago, and they were very nice and welcoming, and they welcomed me into their production facility and showed me where they put together the radios and did stress testing on all of them. Now, I will make somebody's going to come along and comment and say, well, yeah, but their parts are all made in China. No, their parts are not all made in China. Some are made in Japan, some are made in Taiwan, some are made in China, some are made in the USA. But what they do, some of these little trinkets and parts and electronic transistors and whatnot, and all these little items, according to both Flex Radio and Elecraft, which I both talked to, there's some of this electronic stuff you can't get anywhere except China. So what Flex Radio does is they come in and they put everything together in Texas. They have a test room, and they build the boards, they build the transceiver boards, and they take certain parts and put them all together, and then they do stress testing on here, right here in the USA. And they don't send a radio out without fully ensuring that it is working to their specs, before they ship it to the customer. So they are probably my favorite radio right now because they're a network-based radio. It's what's called SDR, software-defined radio. You can plug the radio into your local area network at home, and you can run the software from a computer or tablet on the same network at home, and it will see it automatically. So it's very easy to do, very easy to set up, very easy to run, and they get some of the best. If you go look at the Sherwood reports for receiver specifications and top receivers, the Flex Radio 6700 is one of the top radios at the time of this recording. The 6600 is not too far below it. 6500's on there. So Flex Radio has done a fantastic job over the last few years building one of the best ham radios with modern technology in 2020 and 2021 coming today. And if they're in your ballpark of price range, they're a little bit higher than some others, but they do start at $19.99. A lot of people think it takes $4,000 or $5,000 to get into a really good SDR transceiver, and that's just not the case. They start about $19.99 and go up from there. So flexradio.com would be definitely one of my recommendations if you're getting into some of the best HF radios today. The next one I'll tell you about is also made in the USA. It's called Elecraft. Elecraft has some of what I think are probably the best and most rugged transceivers. If you ever look up D-Expeditions and mountain expeditions and these kinds of things, Elecraft is a big sponsor of D-Expeditions worldwide, people that take their radios to far islands or other countries and set up antennas so that they can make HF contacts back to the United States or anywhere in the world, really. And some of these other countries and islands don't get as much ham radio traffic, so they're sought after when you're trying to get contacts in your log. Some guys chase what's called DXCC, which is the Century Club, and it means you've made contact with over 100 countries on the planet. And some of these countries are rather hard to get because there's either no hams there or there's very few hams there, or they didn't get on the air much, or however that might be. So a lot of these guys who are doing D-Expeditions to far off countries outside the USA are using Elecraft radios. The K line is their 100-watt transceiver line. It started with the K1 and then the K2. The K3 and K3S were out for a while. The K4 was debuted in Dayton Hamvention of 2019. And due to some COVID circumstances and other pushbacks, it has been delayed and it hasn't been released yet at the time of this recording. But they've got a lot of pre-orders in, and it's going to be a really neat radio when they get it done. And I'm looking forward to maybe not buying one myself because, yeah, that's out of my price range. But I know a couple guys who've already pre-ordered one, so I'm going to have to make some trips over to some people's houses and go through the menus and look and see what that looks like. But their KX line is their QRP rig line. They used to make a KX1 that was a CW only transceiver, I believe, but they have a KX2 and a KX3, which are smaller, portable, compact transceivers, which are QRP 10 to 15 watts and run on batteries. They can have internal batteries and internal antenna tuners, and they're great for backpacking and those of you who like to hike up a mountain, go on summits on the air expeditions, or go on parks on the air expeditions, and you just don't want to carry a lot of weight. If you just like doing QRP and you want to do QRP, the KX line is a great choice, and Elecraft, once again, made in the USA. Highly recommended. You can go look on the Sherwood reports again, and a lot of their transceivers are listed there because they just make a fantastic product. Number 3 is Ten-Tech. Now, you might be thinking, if you've heard the name of Ten-Tech, you might be saying, well, they're not around anymore. But they are. Ten-Tech is still around. They are making transceivers. Their production has slowed down over the last few years, but they were at Dayton Hamvention of 2019 debuting their brand new Omni 7 588 Plus transceiver, which is an SDR type transceiver, and you can see it in the screenshot overlay I'll do right here. It is a little bit on the, all of these radios are in the $2,000+ range. So you can see right here, it's starting at $26.99. You can add accessories to it from there. Ten-Tech also makes a few other models that are currently listed on their products page on their website, but at the time of this recording, they don't show to be in stock. But they make some QRP rigs and some 100-watt rigs, and these are made in the USA. So if that's something that you're looking for, if that's something that's important to you, and a lot of hams want to buy equipment that's made in the USA, and I don't blame you, quite frankly. So Flex Radio, Elecraft, and Ten-Tech are all transceivers, 100-watt and QRP transceivers that are currently made in the USA for the HF world. All of these radios are HF radios. They do 6 meter. A lot of them will do 6 meters to 160 meters, or maybe 10 to 80 meters for some of the QRP rigs. The Flex radios do have a capacity to go down to 630 and 2200 meters, and you can get transverters for the other models to do those as well. So these are some of the best, if not the best, HF transceivers in the world today. Not the only HF transceivers in the world today, but they're some of the best, and these 3 are all made in the USA, so they're ones that I would recommend. If you're finding value from this video, go ahead and hit that like button, the thumbs up, and click on subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Let's get back to it. Moving out of the USA and into Japan, the next 4 I'm going to tell you about are all Japanese made. They are in the HF world, but they are all also in the VHF and UHF world. So the next 4 companies all make HF transceivers to sit at a home base station. They make mobile HF transceivers to be mounted in a car, and they make mobile VHF, UHF, dual band, sometimes tri-band, sometimes monoband radios that work in a vehicle, or you can connect to a power supply and use as a home base station, just whatever you want. The first one, of course, is Icom. Icom's probably one of the most popular brands out right now because they just debuted at the time of this recording their brand new IC705, which is a QRP radio, but it can be attached to an amplifier and used as a 100-watt rig as a base station if you choose. It does have a built-in sound card, so you can easily do the HF modes like FT8, PSK31, and RTTY. It's got D-Star built into it, which is one of the digital voice modes for amateur radio today. And it's just got a lot of bells and whistles that they make, but they kind of did a marriage of their IC7300 and their IC9700, which both of those radios are meant for home base radios. I know guys who've put them in their car and installed them in their car, and you can certainly do that. But they're really made for tabletop home base radios. The IC7300 is an all HF rig, which includes 6 meters, and the IC9700, the two radios look almost identical until you turn them on. The IC9700 is a VHF, UHF, and satellite radio, which includes 2 meters, 440, and the 1.2 gigahertz band. And D-Star. The IC9700 also includes D-Star. The 7300 does not include D-Star, but if you take the two radios and stack them together, the 7300 and the 9700, you basically got you've got almost, not quite, but almost every band in amateur radio, and you've got D-Star, and you've got all mode on VHF and UHF, which is a cool thing to do. So they kind of compacted all that and put it into the IC705, and it's been a very well received QRP radio at the time of this recording. And we gave one away for my 50,000 count live stream a while back, and that was really fun. That was really fun to give someone a brand new IC705, which at the time of this recording is still about $12.99. So some of the more expensive radio, or some of the higher quality radios that offer more features and better receivers are always going to be more money. And the brands I'm talking about today are some of the top brands in amateur radio today, especially in the USA. Second on the list, I will say, is Yaesu. Yaesu's pretty heavy in the game of HF today. In fact, at the time of this recording, the Yaesu FTDX 101 Delta is at the very top of the Sherwood Reports list. Now, I've mentioned this list a couple times. What is the Sherwood Reports list? It is a list that tests receiver capability on HF receivers and HF radios. So a lot of people will say, well, I just want the most powerful radio I can get. I just want the biggest amp I can get. And while there's a place for that, okay, if you can't hear the stations that are calling back to you, then you probably don't need that much power. So your receiver sensitivity and receiver capability and receiver quality is actually, once you kind of get into the HF world, you learn by default, basically, that, man, I need a better receiver. I need to hear better. And a lot of that goes with antenna, but a lot of it goes with HF receiver capability of the radio you're using also. So at the time, like I said, at the time of this recording, the FTDX 101D, which is Yaesu's top-of-the-line HF transceiver, I'm pretty sure it does 6 meters to 160 meters right now. I've played with one a little bit. A friend had one at Field Day last year. I got to tinker with it for about 15 or 30 minutes. Really nice radio, great looking display, 3D waterfall, SDR backing on the radio, a lot of bells and whistles on it. Would love to do kind of a deep dive into it if I ever get the chance one day. But that radio is at the top of the list for transceivers right now from Yaesu. Yaesu also has quite a few radios in their VHF UHF line. They make an all mode VHF, UHF, 6 meter and HF transceiver at the time of this recording, which is the 991A. They make a really great mobile HF radio in the 891, and they make several VHF, UHF, FM radios that include their Yaesu System Fusion digital voice mode, including the FTM 400 and the FTM 300 and several HTs along those lines. So they are basically in every part of amateur radio today, from HF up to VHF and UHF, including digital modes for Yaesu System Fusion. They do some all mode for VHF, UHF, which not everybody does that. And they just have a well-rounded inventory of radios and good quality radios in the world today. So they are definitely making the list in this video. Number 6 on the list is, of course, Kenwood. Now, Kenwood's been in the game for a long time, and Kenwood, unlike Yaesu, Kenwood makes all kinds of electronics devices. You can get car stereos that are made by Kenwood. You can get DVD players. I think if they still make DVD players, you can get DVD players made by Kenwood. Kenwood does all kinds of electronics in the world, throughout the electronics world. They're heavy in the commercial industry for transceivers, for two-way radios, transceivers. They've got their NXD and NextEdge line for their digital voice modes. They make some P25 stuff, but they do a lot of external, outside of amateur radio work, but they make a lot of really great amateur radio transceivers also. Their newest HF radio is the TS890S. It is about a $3,300 radio at the time of this recording, and the people, I know 2 or 3 guys who've got that one, and they really like them. They say they're just a great quality, great receiver radio, and with a lot of bells and whistles, and they sound really great on the air. Kenwood is famous for making a model of radio and sticking with it for a long time. Right now, their 2 most popular VHF UHF radios is the D710G and the V71A, both of which have been out for years and years. They don't have fancy color displays. They don't have a bunch of extra stuff like they aren't digital. They're analog only. They're FM only. They don't have anything that would be considered new because they've been out so long, but they still sell. People buy them and they still sell and they still sound great and they're tried and true and they last a long, long time. So they're a great quality transceiver for VHF, UHF. Car mountable is what they are designed for. But of course, any radio that will run on 12 volts, 13.8 volts in a vehicle can be attached to a power supply and run as a base station with a base antenna, which, for a while I ran a TM-V71A as my base station VHF, UHF, FM transceiver. And I still have it. I love that radio. It works great. I'll probably be hooking it back up in the shack soon after I get some more stuff that's done. But Kenwood makes a fantastic line of products. They don't have quite as many as Yaesu and Icom do, but they are definitely in the game. They got into the D-Star game 3 or 4 years ago with their top-of-the-line transceiver, the TH-D74, which is a tri-band, 2 meters, 220, and 440, HT with Bluetooth, GPS, and D-Star. So it is a full-packed HT with a lot of options that other HTs don't have today, including 220, which some of these companies have made 220 radios in the past, but they're not currently making 220 radios today. And I think that's something that a lot of them are missing, quite frankly. So hats off to Kenwood for keeping their foot in the 220 game and getting into the D-Star game, because before that D74 came out, the only D-Star radios you could get were Icom, which are all fantastic radios. But it's good to see other people jumping on that bandwagon as well. Number 7, and probably some more of the most tried and true radios that are just kind of stick around or still in existence today, are Alenco. Alenco radios are made in Japan, and they've got some lines that are made in China, but they're original, and bulk of their radios are made in Japan. They are imported into the USA through a company called Rimtronics out of California. So you can Google Rimtronics and see their full line of radios. They make a couple of HF base station radios. They're not heavy into the HF game. And the HF base station radios they have been around a long, long time, but they are tried and true. I've featured one of those, the SR8T, in my best HF radio under $1,000. It's only about $500 for this full, I want to say it's 10 meters to 80 meters, full power, 100-watt base station transceiver that works really well. Alenco is in the VHF UHF game. They make a lot of really great mobile radios, including their DR735T at the time of this recording. And they make some monoband mobile radios for 10 meters, 6 meters, 2 meters, 220, 440, and I believe 1.2 gigahertz, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that one. The great thing about the monoband Alenco radios, not the dual band, but the monoband Alenco radios, they all have a DB9 connector on the back. What does that allow you to do? A lot of stuff. So all of these guys that are building all-star nodes are attaching Raspberry Pi devices to the back of radios. Now, you can do it on an HT also if you want to. It's a little bit easier to interface into an HT. But if you want a DB9 connector on a radio from the factory, the Alinco is the choice of the best choice, and sometimes the only choice, depending on what you're trying to do. So you can connect a Raspberry Pi to the back of an Alinco radio and do all kinds of stuff. Not just All-Star, but there's all kinds of ham radio applications that run on a Raspberry Pi, and you can connect them easily to an Alinco radio and build all kinds of different nodes out of them. I have an Alinco 220 monoband radio sitting right there right now running an All-Star node, and that's what I connect to All-Star with. So they're very versatile radios, even though they're monoband, to interface into other devices and build different projects from. Those are the 7 brands we're going to talk about today. I should say, before someone comes along and mentions it, there are several brands that are made outside of the USA and outside of Japan. That you can get some good SDR transceivers out of Russia. I think maybe the Ukraine. There's several other areas that are, Italy is building some transceivers that are really good, especially QRP. There's a lot of QRP transceivers, which I'm not necessarily talking about QRP on this video. But if I missed a brand that you think I should have included, put it in the comments below. If you think I missed a brand, there's certainly other brands out there. I'm not saying these are all the brands, but if you're in the USA, which most of my viewers are in the USA, and you're looking to, and you just got into amateur radio and you don't know which brands to choose, all 7 of these are a fantastic option, depending on if you're interested more in HF than VHF, or VHF and dual band, something for your car more than HF. There's not a wrong place to start as long as you just start in amateur radio. For more information on either of these, check out the videos coming up on the left, and we'll see you next time.